Guys, I appreciate you tuning in for another edition of the Pure Tennis Podcast. I'm stoked to be down here at the Miami Open. It's Saturday. I'm recording this at 5:45 p.m., so you guys may not be hearing this till Sunday. But I've really enjoyed my time down here. Met a lot of great people, watched a lot of awesome tennis. I actually went to a PTR convention, which is the Professional Tennis Registry. Met Casper Ruud's coach, who was running this convention or this classroom work, which was just cool to see how at the top level how they kind of take in information with all the new analytics and stats that are available to them and kind of digest them for the players at a simpler, more easier kind of way to understand and not kind of over filtrate the system with just too much information and too many numbers. So they're able to keep it simple and where it makes enough sense for these players that they understand that the stats matter and that the patterns that are working with the percentages, that those things are some things that they need to double down on and stuff. And just as like one of the interesting stats I took away from a couple of the guys, one guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he coached Kim Kleisters. He's now working with an academy in Spain, but he looked at the stats for Pegula. Jessica Pegula, one of the top American women, actually the top American women, she's returning serve and winning more points against serves over 90 miles an hour versus less than 90 miles an hour. So that's just a cool stat for women and men that are trying to beat the first serve and just go all flat. Some players actually are better with timing and just anticipating that flat serve than they are if you were to hit a kick serve or a slice serve with better placement. So that was a really cool stat. Also, Casper Ruud, when he steps inside the baseline to hit a forehand at any point in the rally, I believe it was 75% of those the points that he hits a forehand inside the baseline, he wins that point. So that's a stat that Casper has really been focused on. They kind of talked about how the first return, he's well beyond the baseline. The second shot in the rally, after the return, the ball comes back to him, he's trying to be almost near the baseline, and then he's looking for his chance to step inside and take a cut and move forward when he gets a chance. So it really was cool to hear one of the top players, coaches, kind of just how they dissect and go into practice. And it's about keeping things simple. You don't want to give your player, if you're a coach out there listening to this, you don't want to, like they just talked about, how you don't want to give your player too much information, too many stats, too many things to work on. It flusters the player, and they can't focus on kind of locking in on the one thing that you're trying to master for that day. So if you're out there, they're just saying, like, work on one thing, do that for 5 to 10 minutes, make sure that's dialed in, and then you can move on. But guys, action today. I know this is what you guys wanted to. If you're tuning in, you want to know what's going on in the Miami Open. I just want to start from the top. We're also going to have a couple interviews I did with Tommy Paul and Andrey Rublev drop in here, a couple of awesome sound bites. Tommy was super interesting, just the stuff that he talked about. We talked about the Ben Shelton pairing in doubles, the switching the rackets from the blade to the V-core, and just his thoughts on Tiafoe's comments with the crowd movement and noise. We will put that in at the end of this podcast. I want to start at the top of this draw and kind of walk through the matches that I've seen so far and just the storylines I think that are exciting about this tournament so far. So Carlos Alcaraz, the 1 seed, looked super good in the first round. I mean, Bagnes was trying everything he could, threw the kitchen sink at him, and when he won his first game, late in the first set, he chucked his racket to like 30 feet in the air just in a celebration, and the crowd erupted like he had just won a set. Carlos Alcaraz, though, a physical specimen, a superstar. His practices down here have been unbelievable. I mean, the crowds there's been more people watching his practices than have watched a lot of the matches that I saw in the first couple rounds. He is just a superstar that is replacing one of the big three. I mean, I've been to tournaments my whole life where I've seen, especially at Western and Southern, where I've seen the Rafa and Roger and Novak crowds, and it is. You can compare what he's drawing to these events at the Masters level to what those guys did, and he's only 19 years old. What he's done with his body, I mean, he just talked about it at the Australian Open when he was forced to pull out. He's even changed and altered his off-the-court habits and routines since then, and he looks like he's taken another step. I don't know how it's possible, but he's taken another leap forward in his physicality and the way he's treated his body, and I think that's just going to continue to pay dividends as he's a guy that's going to be going deep in a lot of these tournaments. But Carlos looked very clean. He's going to face Dusan Lajovic, a guy that's had a great week so far in Miami, taking out Andy Murray and Maxime Cressy, both in straight sets. He is in form, a guy just super solid off both wings. You got to hit through a guy like this guy because he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He locks in for every point, and he doesn't give you anything for free. So I do expect Carlos to get through that one in his straights, but just cool to see Dusan Lajovic, a guy that Tennis Point has helped with his gear and equipment in the past, do well at an event like this. Next up, you have an electric matchup, guys. Alexander Davidovich Fokina against Tommy Paul. two phenomenal athletes, two of the best movers and athletes on the tour. A matchup that we just saw go 5 sets at the Australian Open. They are back at it, the 16 versus 20 seed. I can assure you that that's going to be one you want to tune into. Fokina's in form, took out Nakashima in straight sets, and then Tommy Paul took out Husler in a 3-setter, which was really, really fun match. If you guys check out the vlog I'll be putting up, I was at that match, and that was just an electric atmosphere as well. But Paul, Fokina, I think my prediction is going to be just as Australia was. I think Paul's going to take it in the third. Fritz, is beneath that, looking clean. He hit right through the young the young California kid Emilio Nava, 21-year-old, who's looking to break through still. Fritz just too much firepower, applied too much pressure. Emilio Nava is going to have his day, but not to be here. Just tried to do too much, hit too big, and Fritz was cognizant of that in his presser after the match. Fritz will play Denis Shapovalov. Shapovalov pulled out a big 3-set match against Pela. Shapovalov continues to kind of fight for his form. I mean, he's a 24th seed at this tournament. I think the ranking to me is, I think it's higher than what his level has been over the last 52 weeks. He did have a successful last bit of the calendar year last year. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of this year, but I think we could be seeing him round into form a little bit here. And this is a huge matchup. He just played Fritz not long ago where he lost, but this is a matchup that he's won in the past. I think he's got 3 wins over Fritz in their career matchup. I think Shapovalov on these faster courts, if he's finding that forehand with his movement, he could test Fritz here. I mean, Fritz is just playing so well. I don't want to bet against the best American just with home crowd and just what he just did at Indian Wells was obviously he's been in form, but that's gonna be an electric match. Get your popcorn ready for that one. Schwartzman beneath that takes out Yibing Wu. I did not see that. I did not see that coming. If we're being honest, I thought Wu would take him out. Schwartzman with his biggest win in a long time. If he didn't win that one, I don't know if he would have been seated in a tournament the rest of the year. Just seemed like he was in a downward spiral. Gets himself loose. He's into the next round. He's going to play against the young Danish superstar Holger Rune, the 7th seed in this tournament, who just continues to impress. I mean, Holger Rune takes out Fucsovics in a tricky first matchup that he had in the second round here after having a bye. Just Fucsovics is, he's got the firepower, got the weapons, he's moving well, and just coming off a solid Indian Wells where he took out J.J. Wolf and seemed to be playing good tennis. I mean, Holger had it up against him a little bit there, but fights through. Schwartzman and Rune should be a fun one. I do expect Holger to win that one in straight sets. Next up, Casper and Botic Vendessenschel. That's a last name it's gonna be tough on me to pronounce that one the rest of his career, I'm sure. But Botic versus Casper. I'll take Casper in this one just because I think Casper he realizes that he's got a lot of points to defend here coming up, and he needs this to keep his top 10 ranking. So Botic playing well. He could cause some problems with his ability to kind of step in and rip the forehand early, but Casper moving very well. Looked really clean in that first round matchup against Ilya Ivachka. Next storyline is, Sasha Zverev lost to Taro Daniel. Taro Daniel bagels him in the first set, 6-0, and then 6-4 in the second set. Did not see that coming. I thought Sasha Zverev was going to start to turn the corner after coming back from his ankle injury. Not the case. He's going to have to look for it to happen on the clay court season where he actually hurt his ankle last year at Roland Garros against Rafa. Taro Daniel continues to play great tennis. He's taken out now Berrettini, Sasha, and Casper in the last month or so, I believe, playing his best tennis of his career. Really cool to see a guy I've watched on the Challenger circuit and kind of make his way, and he finally seems to be making his breakthrough. So big win for him. He plays Emilio Ruusuvuori. Ruusuvuori took out Roberto Bautista Agut in straight sets. Ruusuvuori is Gil Gross on the last podcast said that he is the dark horse for him. He thinks Ruusuvuori can make a deep run, and with Zverev out of this field now, that just got a lot more interesting. So that take looks like it's looking a lot better now. I didn't see him getting through Zverev, but now he doesn't have to see Zverev, and that's just I like to take there. Gil might have found something here. Beneath, you got Sinner versus Dimitrov. Can't wait for that matchup. That's just going to be I do expect Sinner to win that one, but the points from that one is both of them are shot makers. Both of them are going to be put on a show for the crowd, and I think Sinner and Grigor is a matchup of one of the best matchups of tomorrow. That'll be on Monday. Sunday. Sunday. So electric matchup. Sinner, the youngster from Italy, has been looking for to kind of regain his form, and he's gonna be in the top 10 again after falling out briefly. Grigor with a big win in his second round against Struff. Didn't know if he was going to pull through that one. Fought through 7-6-6 or 4-6, 7-6, 6-4. And then Kecmanovic, Rublev is beneath that. There's just so many good matches. This tournament is loaded. I mean, these big draws. Can't wait till Cincinnati, Western and Southern turns their draw into one of these Masters from Miami Open and Indian Wells, where it's a draw of 128. It just creates basically 2 weeks of unbelievable action. So where you got top players, I mean, it's just low. You got Kecmanovic, Rublev, and Rublev had to go through J.J. Wolf before this. So it's like no easy first round matchup, or even Rublev came off a bye, but nothing easy for Rublev. Walks from J.J. Wolf to Kecmanovic, who had a huge win against Ugo Humbert in 3 sets, which was an awesome matchup. Great crowd presence. Those two had a great embrace at the end of that match. You can just tell they have a lot of mutual respect for each other. I had a ton of fun watching that one courtside. Hurkacz and Kakanakis are in action now. I believe Hurkacz was up. Kakanakis, the lucky loser, benefit of a dropout late. I forget who that dropout was, but Kakanakis is battling. He is on serve, 4-4 right now. So Kakanakis playing great tennis, looking to kind of build on what he did in Australia. But Hurkacz, I do expect him to pull through this one, as this is a title that he has taken home before 2 years ago. Hurkacz, I expect him to play Ben Shelton, who has Adrian Mannarino tonight, later at 8:45 tonight. I think Shelton versus Hurkacz would be electric. 2 Yonex guys, the V-Core versus the E-Zone. No, that would be a big match for our friends at Yonex. Shelton's athleticism, his firepower. Watching him play doubles with Tommy Paul was so much fun. I love that the top players are playing doubles. I think it helps them so much. Is moving forward, especially on hard courts, moving forward and knocking off that volley to just put more pressure and really just close off points. Because we've seen some of these top players like Medvedev and Rublev, and even Casper Ruud to an extent. They have the big weapon, they have the forehand, they have the firepower, but they don't look comfortable in the front court knocking the ball off. So it's like these guys that are great movers. There's so many good athletes and good movers on the tour right now that they're able to neutralize the point so much easier when the ball can go back to the baseline with a little bit of a floater. And if you're able to come volley and knock some of these shots off, you're able to just apply way more pressure and make that defensive shot, make them take a little bit more of a risk. So I love that Shelton is playing doubles. I think that's really going to help his singles game a lot. It's crazy that he's already a top 32 seed this early in his career, but he's just an exciting player to watch. He draws a ton of fans out here. Obviously, being a Florida kid playing in Miami is playing in his backyard, so he's got a ton of fan support here. Shelton just plays with so much passion, so much joy. I think you could say the same thing for Hurkacz as well. Loves to have fun with his tennis, loves to mix in the goofy drop shots and really keep you guessing with his shot selection. That should be an electric matchup if we get it. Adrian Mannarino, though, playing extremely good tennis, took out Jerry Shang after dropping the first set pretty easily after that. Adrian Mannarino on these fast hard courts, just a tricky customer for anybody. The lefty has sneaky good power. You gotta hit through the guy, and it's not easily done by guys that are outside the top 30. He's just a pesky guy that's been hanging around the top 50 for a lot of years. I have to say I've never really enjoyed or loved watching him play, but as I've gotten older and he's gotten older, obviously, I'm like, all right, it's pretty amazing what this guy can do. 19 pounds of tension in his Babolat Pure Arrow, just flicks the wrist, just hardly any backswing at all. It's impressive what he can generate, though. And I'm at 60 pounds, he's at 19 pounds of tension. That to me is like, I can barely wrap my head around it. I would love to grab his racket and just hit a few forehands with it and see how far in the stands my forehand lands, because there's just no way I could get that ball to drop. I might have had one of our stringers at Tennis Point string me up at 19 pounds and make a video to show you guys what happens if I take the same swing at 19 versus 60, just as a little test. That might be something pretty fun. Shout out to Chris Eubanks. The American is 1 win away from cracking the top 100 for the first time in his career after taking out Borna Coric, the 17 seed, in 3 sets earlier today. Sorry, I think I need a water, but takes out Borna Coric in 3 sets. He faces the winner of Cam Norrie and the Frenchman Barret. I think that'll be Cam Norrie. Got Hallis upsets Demonar 6-7, 7-6, 7-6. A huge win for Quentin Hallis. A guy that, if you guys remember earlier this year, in Australia, Novak Djokovic beat him, and that was in 3 sets. I think it was Adelaide. Not 100% sure, but I remember that Novak Djokovic said that this guy's his level was at like a top 15 level, and I always memory bank that because I mean, you don't hear Novak gas up players just to kind of do it. But when he said that, I was like, there's some real merit to this, and it seems to be holding up. Hallis has had some sneaky good results, even in some of his losses. He's pushing guys deep and pulls through. Big match against Demonar, who's been playing amazing. He'll play Mackenzie McDonald, who took out Matteo Berrettini in that epic 2-setter, 7-6, 7-6 on Stadium 1. Just left that match not too long ago. Epic crowd turnout. Obviously, all the girls from the 14-year-olds, or whatever, to like the 70-year-olds. Everybody's cheering for Berrettini. He's one of the favorites for the girls. It's just like it's funny how some of these players have that type of appeal where they obviously draw the. You look around the crowd, you're like, there's not a whole lot of dudes out here, but it's Berrettini. Ultimately, just not able to do enough. I'm a little bit concerned about what's going on with the Berrettini camp right now. I don't know. Berrettini just looks a lot more unsure of himself these days. He doesn't seem confident in kind of his patterns that were working for him when he was a top 10 player and pushing for like he was a Wimbledon finalist. But he needs to get his game back together because he'll slip out of the top 20. It's going to get tougher from there. I mean, when you're not a top 20, top 15 seed, you're going to see these top players quicker in these big events, and it's just an upward battle from there. But Mackenzie McDonald, that's the story. The American has a massive win. He is so damn steady. He's moving around. He's moving around the court so well. He just makes you hit one extra ball, and he's able to neutralize so many points with his little like block bunt shots from the backhand. He's able to flick the forehand with just that little backswing when he's on the dead run, and he's just his passing shots are so clean. He's coming forward very well now, knocking off some volleys. He's mixing in some drop shots, keeping his opponents guessing. I mean, after he took out Rafa at the Australian Open, he seems to kind of mentally turned a page there and seems to believe in his game more than ever. Continuing on with the draw, Alex Molchan took out Nishioka earlier today in 3 sets. Molchan is continuing to climb. He will play the winner of Medvedev and Carballus Baena. And then, I think that's Medvedev's match right there. So you got Medi versus Molchan. Felix comes through against Thiago Monteiro, 7-6, 7-6. Unreal match on Grandstand. Both of them had great fan support. A ton of Brazilians out there with they have like organized. The South Americans have organized chants for their guys, and I'm always like, Americans got to do better. I mean, they have so many cool cheers. I remember being at the U.S. Open, watching Tabilo versus Wolf, and it was just like, man, like they're organized out here, and it feels like there's a whole army of fans around the whole court. The way they have they're synchronized. Felix, he had, I guess some of the Canadians there were like offended. They started to raise their level and raise their voice in between points as they saw how much support Thiago was getting. But Felix ultimately pulls through a really nice win there, 7-6, 7-6. He plays Francisco Cerundolo. That should be a fun matchup. 2 really good athletes, 2 big ball strikers. That'll be a big one. That'll take place on Monday. The rest of the action today on Saturday in place is Evans and Sonego. They're on court right now. Watanuki and Tiafo, Hachinov and Echeverry, and then Lehechka walk through Musetti 4-4 today. As well as, almost forgot the last couple matches here. Tsitsipas got a withdrawal from Gasquet earlier, so there was no. He was supposed to be on center court. That was canceled with Gasquet pulling out with an ankle injury. He will face Garin, who took out Marcos Giron, and then Sebastian Baez in 2 really nice matches. Garin is starting to find his form again. He had kind of dropped off for a while, and it didn't look like he was himself. He seems to have found that he tapped into his gear where we saw him play well in like 2020, 2021. He's coming back. He's going to have Tsitsipas, who is not 100% with a bum shoulder. I think that's a sneaky upset pick there. I think Garin could take out Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas, watch him on the practice courts. Too many slice. Looks like he's not comfortable coming over top of the ball right now. I talked to Gil Gross about this. I'm like, why do you think, what's the benefit of Tsitsipas playing? Like, why would his camp advise him to play, or why would he be out here still? And he thinks it is to stay fit for the clay court season, where he thinks he can kind of just take it easy and slice the backhand and work himself into points and find the forehand. And he just wants to kind of keep the legs in good physical condition for the clay court season, because he has a ton of points to defend there. Obviously, the Monte Carlo title, where he took out Fulkina there, he has to defend those points. And but I do think that's an interesting decision, because he's not 100% healthy. It's usually better when you're a top 10 player, just kind of bite the bullet there and sit out for a couple weeks or whatever it is, get healthy so you can get back to your top form. But Tsitsipas is always kind of been one to kind of stick to his guns and do what he thinks is the right way to do it. So he's going to try to battle it out. He got taken out early, first round of the Indian Wells tournament. I think you could see him, after not playing against Gasquet today, we could see him drop to Christian Guerin. That's my kind of hot take of the day, I guess. But guys, enjoy these two interviews with Tommy Paul and Andrey Rublev. Have a great weekend, and we are going to be back with you guys again soon. Really good match out there. In the first set, you were down, and I felt like the turning point was when you started finding the backhand down the line. You hit like 3 or 4 winners in a row with the backhand. Was that something that you figured that you could kind of expose a little bit?
I mean, was a bit tough match, and because I didn't have much time to adapt. I had only 2 days of practice, so I didn't know what to expect, how I will feel on court. And JJ, he was playing really well since the beginning, and he started to win and the lead, but then I was able to keep calm inside and just to try. Okay, let's see. I will try to keep going, to play, to think what to do, and I started to play better and better. And like you said, I started to use more down the line, because he was using a lot forehand inside out, and he was just nearly being waiting there before a shot already completely on the backhand side. So he opened all the down the line, and I was just trying to use it and to go for it, and in the end I was able to do it, and I was able to come back and win the match.
Andrey, your first serve was on fire today.
Second set, huh?
Can you, even though the score was close, can you comment on your serve in these conditions?
I don't know, because in the beginning of the match I was not serving really well. I was not really making first serves, and then with the time, like I said, when I started to get used to more and more, I started to serve better and play better, and in the end, I end up with some good rallies and some great serves as well that saved me break points and stuff like that.
These courts are playing faster than Indian Wells, the players have said so far. What's the area of focus for you in 2023 to improve your game?
To be honest, I mean, in the game-wise, there is a lot of things that I have to improve, but I don't think that I have that much problem with the game compared to other players. The game-wise, I think I'm on a good level. In my case, it's more about emotions, to be in the right mood, in the right moments, and that's the main thing that I need to improve if I want to be able to be at the top 10 and be able to fight with the top players.
Andrey, the other day, Tiafoe was making comments about he feels that in tennis the fans should be allowed to move around and make a noise and things like that. What do you think about that when you have to consider hearing the ball connecting with an opponent's racket?
You talk about spectators or the player?
No, it's a bit of both. I mean, he feels that the spectators should be able to make a noise, should be able to move around.
Yeah.
But as a player, do you think that's going to be distracting because you've got to hear the ball with the connecting?
It's a tough question because depends on a stadium, I think, because there is some stadiums that people are doing some noises and they are not. You don't really hear them that loud on a court. And there is some stadiums that any little noise on a court you hear it very clear, and then it's kind of can disturb you because if something suddenly like today, for example, they dropped the water and the sound was crazy massive and you kind of react, because and it can disrupt. So it's more about, I think, question to the stadiums to be able to build these kind of stadiums that the noise on a court was not that loud, and maybe in this case it will be easier because, for example, the US Open, the court is quite loud, but there you kind of in one moment you don't even really notice them, you know.
So you don't think it would bother you too much?
Depends, like I said, if it's court like US Open, because they are quite noisy, they are on the center court, but there it feels, I don't know, normal. You don't even pay attention. But like I said, the court that I was playing today, for example, there one bottle drop and you hear it a lot and it's disturbing you a lot. So
Tommy, I asked Taylor about changing and kind of tinkering equipment at this stage of his career, and he said he's not like Tommy and he can't just change rackets like overnight. Talk about kind of your decision to kind of change sticks completely and change to the V-chord, and why you made the change and what you're getting out of that racket.
So like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, before I signed with Wilson, I tried out the Onyx rackets and I liked them, but we couldn't get them to where it was like just right, you know. And then at the end of the year, I was kind of excited to try out the Onyx rackets, and it was actually weird. I was using one string the whole preseason, and then right before I got to Australia, I was like, all right, like I'm gonna go back to my old string and switch it. And I got down there and I was playing really well. I actually went down there with
What was it?
3 Wilson rackets and 3 Onyx rackets, and I was like, all right, like if first week doesn't go well in Australia, like I'm going back to the Wilson. I actually didn't even play that good the first week, but I felt comfortable with the racket, and then I went to Australia and I left my Wilson rackets in Adelaide, so I was fully committed.
You had a decent success with the V-chord down in Australia, so it might have been a good decision there.
Yeah, definitely.
You,
Tommy, I've been asking a couple of the guys, just this moment for men's tennis where you look at the draw here, and obviously there's no Rafa, Federer's retired, obviously Novak couldn't be here. Everyone in like mid-20s or younger, basically. Just kind of how exciting is this moment in men's tennis right now?
I think that depends on who you ask. You know, I think a lot of people are missing Novak, Rafa, and Roger. But for me, I love it. I think all the players are super excited. I think if you're like, I don't know, if you're a true fan of like the evolution of tennis, like you would love where we're at right now. I think there's such good and promising young people coming into the game that are going to be at the top of the game for a long time, and they're fun to watch and fun to play against. So I'm really happy to be here, and I think it's in great hands. Anything else, guys?
Speaking of the up-and-comers, you played with one last night in Ben Shelton, a guy you faced in the quarters of Australian Open. How did that pairing come about, and how much fun did you guys have? It seemed like you guys had some good chemistry out there.
Yeah, good question. It was actually right after our quarterfinal match in Australia.
No way.
He was on the bike, and we were like talking about like when we were gonna play dubs or whatever. I think he asked for Indian Wells, and then I was set with Fritz, and I was like, let's do Miami. He was actually set with Foe to play here, but then switched it up last second because I think Foe bailed on him at some point, so he was like, I gotta get him back. But yeah, it actually happened down in Australia. I've loved Ben since I met him. I think he's a great kid. Obviously a super promising player, already a great player, so he's going to be a super exciting guy to follow his whole career.
Did you have one more? Francis was actually talking earlier in the week about maybe changing the rules to let there be more movement between points and music playing, and you seemed a little frustrated with some of the rules on court today with not being able to get coached during the heat or interruption.
No, I wasn't even coaching. Like, there was not even coaching. I was just telling my team, I was like, talking about the dude up in the stands. We were not talking about any coaching stuff. And he was like, you can't have conversation with your coach. And I was like, I thought we just changed that rule. I'm like just super confused on like what we can and can't do on court. I think what Francis said is great. Like, open the whole thing up, let people walk around, let young people drink beers while we play tennis, you know? Like, let me have a conversation with someone in the crowd. I mean, I know, like, for me, it's not always the best, but, like, Bo can do it his whole match and still play great tennis. So, like, I think that'd be something really interesting to watch.
All right,
Thank you, guys. They gotta do like that golf tournament where they like let all the people throw the beer.
Yeah, waste management.
You gotta try like one of them here.
What string are you using in the V chord?
I'm using gut right now.
From what, Alu? Or Lexon?
Gut from
Youngers?
No, they don't have gut. It's like that lot, I think.
Gotcha. Good luck, Tommy.